for Rolling in Progress from the Book of Ruth. I'm just going to be chanting chapter 1 this evening due to time, and then I'm going to be leading a short session on Yiddish poetry as creative midrash on the Book of Ruth. Unfortunately, Rabbi Nathan Godliman couldn't make it this evening, so I am taking over for him. And before I knew that I was going to run a session, I thought, what's the shortest thing that I can possibly share with you about the Book of Ruth? Because I didn't want to take up too much time. So because the session is now going to be on poetry, and because I love to write short poems like limericks and haiku, I'm just going to share a limerick with you that I wrote about the Book of Ruth. It goes like this. Like Ruth's closet vow to Naomi and Hayworth's portrayal of Salome, each tree of the field shall speak as they yield, your people, my people, they shall be. Vayehi bimei shefot hashoftim, vayehi ra'a ba'aretz, vayelech ish mi beit lechem Yehuda, lagur bisdei Moav, hu v'ishto u'shnei vanav. V'shem ha'ish Elimelech, v'shem ishto Naomi, v'shem shnei vanav Machlon v'chilyon Efratim, mi beit lechem Yehuda. Vayavo'u sdei Moav, vayhiyu sham. Vayamot Elimelech ish Naomi, vatishaer hi u'shnei vaneha. Vayisu lahem nashim moaviot, shem ha'achat orpa, v'shem hashanim Ruth. Vayeshvu sham ke'eser shanim. Vayamutu gam shnehem Machlon v'chilyon, vatishaer ha'isha mishnei yeladeha u'meisha. Vatakom hi v'chaloteha, vatashov misdei Moav, ki shama'a bisdei Moav, ki fakad Adonai et amo, latet lahem lachem. Vatetzei min hamakom asher hayita shama, u'shtei chaloteha ima. Vatelach navaderech lashuv el eretz Yehuda. Vatomer Naomi lishtei chaloteha, leich nashovna, isha leveit ima. Vayas Adonai imachem chesed, ka'asher ya'asitem im hametim ve'im adi. ייתן אדוני לכם ומצאן המנוחה אישה בית אישה ותשק להן ותישאנה קולן ותבכנה ותאמרנה לה כי איתך שוב לעמך ותאמר נעמי שוב נא בנותיי למה תלכנה עמי העוד לי בנים ומאה ויהיו לחם לאנשים שוב נא בנותיי לכנה כי זקנתי מהיות לאיש כי אמרתי יש לי תקווה גם הייתי הלילה לאיש וגם ילדתי בנים עליהן תסרבנה עד אשר יגדלו עליהן תגנה לבליתי היות לאיש על בנותיי כי מר לי מאוד מכן כי יצאבי עד אדוני ותישאנה קולן ותבכנה עוד ותשק עורפה לחמותיי ורות דבקה בה ותאמר הנה שבה יבימתך אל עמה ואל אלוהיה שובי אחרי יבימתך ותאמר רות אל תפגעי בי לעזבך לשוב מאחרייך כי אל אשר תגלי אלך ובאשר תליני אלין עמך עמי ואלוהיך אלוהי באשר תמותי אמות ושם אקבר כל יעשה אדוני לי וכל יוסיף כי המוות יפריד ביני ובינך ותראה כי מתאמצת היא ללכת איתה ותחדל לדבר עליה ותלכנה שתיהם עד בעוני בית לחם ויהי כבואנה בית לחם ותהום כל העיר עליהן ותאמרנה הזאת נעמי ותאמר עליהן אל תקראנה לי נעמי קראנה לי מרה כי המר שדי לי מאוד אני מלאה הלכתי וריקם השיבני אדוני Lama tikrena li Naomi Va'adonai anavi V'shadai Heira li. Vatashav Naomi Varut Hamalavia Chalata Ima Hashava Misde Moav Vehema Bahu Beit Lechem V'tichlat Katsir Sorim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehecheyanu v'kiyamanu v'hikiyanu lazman hazeh. Blessed are we for this new season, this new time, and this new gathering in real space and in cyberspace. And also, that was the first time I chanted Ruth, so shehecheyanu to me. So I'm going to talk a bit today, and hopefully we will talk a little bit, as much as we can, about poetry as midrash. What is midrash? Midrash is rabbinic commentary, traditionally recorded, but many of us as progressive Jews, I mean, I'm assuming that we are all progressive Jews, we might not be, but as Jews in general, of people who love literacy, who love poetry, who love music, we use that as a way to give us new perspective on ancient text and on ancient wisdom. And what is the point of midrash? It's to think about whose voices are we hearing in the text, and whose voices are we not hearing in the text, whose voices would we like to hear in the text. So the Book of Ruth is very interesting because we hear a lot of direct foregrounded speech, especially in the chapter that we've just read, which perhaps is the very thing which drew the two Yiddish poets that I've been studying to write their own versions of conversations between characters in the Book of Ruth. So the first one I'm going to tell you about, but not focus on today, and her name is Rosa Jakubowicz, who was born in Parshnitz in the Płocka province in Poland in 1889 and died in Auschwitz in 1944. And she's basically now a forgotten figure who published one very small collection of poems called Meine Gesangen, My Songs in Warsaw, in 1924. And the second, who I will focus on today, partly because I'm more well-versed, in his poetry, is someone you might have heard of, Itzik Manga. Itzik Manga was one of the best known of the Yiddish poets. He was born in Czernowitz in Romania in 1901 and died in Tel Aviv in 1969. And he was famous for his Chumash Lieder, like Pentateuch poems, Torah poems, and Megillah Lieder, which are poems based on the scroll of Esther. And he was those were published in Warsaw in 1936 and 35. And his sequence Ruth was written in North Africa in 1940 and was first published in 1942 in his collection of Wolkens über dem Dach, which means clouds over the roof, which is one of his collections. He published also Midrash Itzik, Itzik's Midrash, which is a collection of poems retelling the stories of the Hebrew Bible. And both him and Jakubowicz, they were his kind of what you might call secular midrash, connecting 20th century Yiddish poetry and 20th century Eastern European Jewish experience to the traditional text. So yeah, his Megillah leader, his Chumash leader, his midrash, they brought the biblical characters to life as dramatic personalities, but in an Eastern European Jewish landscape. Um, and in these works, he was kind of merging quite a few different forms. So, uh, like folk forms of a Yiddish ballad, a kind of Purim spiel sensibility as well, but of course based on the traditional text, the traditional biblical text. He reworks the stories and the characters from the Hebrew texts, and is developing Yiddish folk interpretations of those characters and of those settings. Um, so he was really extracting from sacred texts in as a way of grounding his secular Yiddish storytelling. Although, as I'm saying this, I'm thinking that these um, sort of binaries, these dichotomies of secular and religious are perhaps not particularly valid, or um, that he's sort of integrating these two things in order to make something new. Um, so a little about Manga. He left Warsaw for Paris in 1938, but in 1940, after France fell into Nazi hands, he fled to Marseille, and boarded a ship that landed him in North Africa, which is where he wrote the series of poems entitled Ruth. And interestingly, the series opens with a note from Manga, excuse me, which presents an essential piece of information. And it says, "This fragment of the long poem Ruth I dedicate to my sister Shandel and her friend, the weaver Volker Glosman. Two-thirds of this long poem, together with other manuscripts, was lost to me in the course of my itinerant wanderings." So again, like it speaks to what history, what words, what historical documents do we have access to, and on this journey of exile that Manga was on, um, his work got lost. So again, that is kind of reflective of the historical moment. So it's very interesting. So he sets his rewriting of Ruth in an Eastern European landscape, where along with the biblical characters, the trees and the river and the wind speak in Yiddish. So it's eight poems, and Catherine Hellerstein is the scholar who's written extensively about this set of poems, and she says, she points out that the titles in the series of the poems are interesting. So I'll tell you the titles. Naomi recites God of Abraham. God of Abraham, by the way, is God von Avram, which is a prayer that traditionally in religious communities is recited in Yiddish during Havdalah at the end of Shabbat. And it's like a women's prayer for the week to come to us in peace and luck and blessing. It was written by Rabbi Levi Yitzchak of Berdichev, so obviously anachronistic kind of time liturgy. So that's what the reference is. So Naomi recites God of Abraham. The next title is Naomi speaks to her daughters-in-law. Naomi cannot sleep. Orpah cannot sleep. Ruth cannot fall asleep. Naomi leaves the village at the fork in the road, and Orpah says goodbye. 5-minute warning to me. Oh my goodness, I got the timings totally wrong. Oh no. I was told 45 minutes, Gabriel. Okay, right. I'm not going to be able to do most of this session then, so we'll have to do what we can. Goodness me, what? Let's just act in the moment. Uh, All right, so I think what I'll do is just read you the three poems that I was gonna discuss with you. Um, and yeah, that's what we'll do in the last 5 minutes. Okay. Naomi recites God of Abraham. Old Naomi in the middle of the room whispers, God of Abraham. Nearby her daughters-in-law, blonde, listen, pious and intent. God of Abraham, great God, the holy Sabbath now departs, and like Sabbath in this alien town, my joy flees my heart. She walks slowly to the window. Outside the darkening mill, she barely breathes with the stirring wings. The evening wind is cool. Elimelech brought this mill. Naomi recalls once long ago these shiksas disgusted her, but maybe it was decreed by fate that now she holds them dear. They had adored those sons of hers, worked side by side in the field, and paid their in-laws great respect, and honoured them in this world. Now they, poor things, are widows too, and she, a widow alone. Orpah cannot sleep. Orpah sits in her room at night, and yet again reads the letter. Her father, the old peasant, writes. She reads and breathes deeply. Orpiosia, little daughter, come home. Your mother is old and sick. Krasa, the cow, has calved, and everything is thank God. Stashek, the miller with an axe, murdered his wife at night, and now he's in the clink, praise God. We drag in a bit of bread. Anusia, the blacksmith's girl, came back from the city with a belly. Her mother cries and the blacksmith drinks and beats her into jelly. At Itzko, the Jews' village tavern, they knocked out all the pains. And Itzko himself with his household caught Vajna in the act. Yes, Antek, the writer for the court, pulled me aside and he said, I heard that Orpiosia's lost her world now that her husband's dead. So let her come home, write her that I am well prepared, although she has lived with a Jew, to take her as she is. Orpah puts away the letter. Antek calls her back. Perhaps indeed, maybe with him, is she decreed her luck? She walks slowly to the window, a strange ache in her heart. The cemetery sleeps in the moonlight, and she weeps a final tear. And finally, Ruth cannot fall asleep. Ruth stands slender before the mirror and combs out her blonde hair. The words that her mother-in-law spoke are all too painfully clear. Tomorrow, that means in several hours, old mother-in-law alone will return to her people and her God. And she, where will she go? Home to the village where her father drinks and her wicked stepmother swears. Too long has that blonde Marussia saddened and darkened her world. Home to the village where the landowner beats the serfs with an iron rod. She remembers distinctly how her brother's flesh spilled out sweat and blood. Home to the village where Vasil the madman announced to the marketplace how Pan Jesus had blessed him on the peak of the church mount. She trembles. Outside the river's rush, come Rushka, beloved, come. I have divorced my old naiad, and you are pious and good. Come be my naiad, Rushka, love, come be my water wife. I have water roses for your hair and for your body pearls. With me you'll have the very best of all that you could dream. By day the fine gold of the sun, and by night the moon's bright beam. Ruth listens and fevers. Yes, she's prepared. She smiles, tired and sad. If her mother-in-law won't take her along, she'll become the river's naiad. So I will leave you with all of that for now. I'll put my email address in the chat if anyone would like to find out more. And thank you so much to Ellie and Gabriel for having me at this wonderful event.
Just want to say thank you, Rach, first for the beautiful laning and also gorgeous poems, and the translations are just amazing. And I'm sure everybody here would like to have more of them. So thank you so much. Really beautiful.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Rachel. We're going to resume again at 9:10, so you've got 4 minutes to find a cheesecake. And we will be looking then at prophetic preachers of the 19th century. So see you in a few minutes.